Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Tuesdays in Conversation. And we're very lucky today as I have not just one, but two guests for you. Both of them are artists. One of them I've met before when a month ago in Los Angeles, as a Viking godmother, she named the latest ship in the Viking fleet, the Viking Neptune. And as a retired NASA astronaut, she also knows what it's like to travel around the Earth at 17,000 miles an hour. And that's our subject today, the bringing together of art and technology. And to help us do it, allow me to introduce to you the artist Maria Lanas and the veteran NASA astronaut and herself also an artist, Nicole Stott. Welcome to both of you, and thank you for coming on to Viking.TV.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
It's great to have you. So, Nicole, can I come to you first, if I may, and ask you about a conversation that you had, I think it was back in 2015, in a Texas hospital with a little 7-year-old girl who was receiving cancer treatment, and which, if I've understood correctly, was the catalyst or the seed that started growing and ended up creating the Space for Art Foundation.
Absolutely. It's and thanks for asking, because it's one of my favorite stories, and I think it was very pivotal in a number of ways for me. First of all, in setting me off in what I consider to be my next mission in life, yeah, I was invited to participate in an art project with some kids at a local hospital, and it was a space-themed project. We were going to be collecting art to build an art spacesuit. And I really thought this would be kind of a one-off thing, that I'd show up for this event, I'd participate with the kids, that it would be, I imagined it to be, for myself even, really inspirational and an amazing thing to do. But I didn't really at the time think about it having a life of its own, building off of it. Mm-hmm. And I was sitting next to this young girl who I kind of guessed was about 7 years old, and really beautiful little girl. She was there for cancer treatment. This was a pediatric cancer hospital. And she had this beautiful little hat on, covering up her bald, head to keep her warm. And we were painting. And as we were painting, she started talking to me about how what I do as an astronaut must be a lot like what she was going through in the hospital. Wow. And I mean, just even now, I get the goosebumps every time I think about it, because in my mind, I was like, how in the world, while trying to keep a smile on my face, and have her continue the conversation, I was like, how in the world could she be comparing what I dreamed about doing, what is a very positive thing in my life, to what she was going through in the hospital? And she just very matter-of-factly continued painting and talking to me like, yeah, you can't see your mommy and daddy and friends the same way. You can't just go outside anytime you want. You're eating all different kinds of food. They're doing all different kinds of tests on you. Your body's changing. And then she tops it off with, and I think there's radiation and wow, all this. And I'm just like, I mean, it really was this beyond her years wisdom that I think she was just felt like was this natural, obvious thing to say. And so we continued that conversation. And it made me, I mean, it really was like the moment where I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but in one way or another, I need to keep doing this. I need to keep doing these kinds of engagements with kids who are going through what you hope is the worst thing they ever have to deal with in their life. And that somehow through these things, they are able to, I don't know, imagine their futures outside of that place and share that with you, and then create and know they're part of something bigger through the art project they're going to be participating in. And I don't know, right there, next mission in life.
Wow, that's a great story. And what intelligence on such young shoulders. Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah, incredible. Yeah. Marie, let me come to you. Before you met up with Nicole, you were the founder of a global art and culture initiative called Project Postcard. Now, can you just tell me what that was all about?
Well, that started out of an unexpected, events. I was in for my art exhibit in Kastav, Croatia. And it was a culture and art exchange program that was initiated by the city of Kastav. And part of this program, I got the opportunity to work with the kids in the elementary school. Mm-hmm. So the mayor of the city, who was promoting this project, asked me to teach the children an art class. And I had no experience in teaching. And since the mayor asked me, I just had to come up with a lesson. So I went into the classroom, and the teacher did not know what to expect of me because it was unplanned in a way. And I thought that the best way for them to learn about art and my process was to hear what they had to say. So I asked them to do a project called The Cats of Kastav. And that was because in Kastav, there's thousands of little cats on the street. And I invited the kids to walk around the city and show me their touristic spaces in the city and tell the story through the cats.
Oh, wonderful. I love that. That's great.
So the teachers, they said, what do we use? So I said, whatever materials you have, you will use. So we used paper, crayons, anything. And as the children began working on this project, the teachers realized that they had a large attention span because they didn't want to stop working. Okay. And as we continue the project, I said, okay, first, I should take them to the gallery where my paintings are at. And, they will learn my process and what it is about. So we go into the gallery, and my paintings are abstract and full of color. But the story behind it is a little bit sad. It's a personal experience that I went through. And it was about me and my father-in-law. And he had cancer. So this inspiration came from his chemo treatments. So that's what I painted. I painted the chemo, what I imagined the chemo was happening when it was mixing with his blood. So it was an explosion of color. So the kids didn't know that, and the teacher didn't know this. So when they walk into the gallery, they're like, wow, dragons, they were so excited about the paintings. And then the teacher asked me, what is it about? So when I told her the story, she was so mad at me because because the kids, they went into a high of being so happy. And when they heard the story, it went into a low. And there was a moment of silence in the gallery. And the teacher just said, okay, what are you going to do? And all of a sudden the little kids start raising their hands, and they start sharing with us their own personal stories about their family. And they start telling me, oh, Maria, my grandfather was sick. He also had cancer. My mom was sick. And on, each one started telling their own personal stories. And at that moment, the kids understood what art was about. And this helped them create their own artwork. And then I told the teachers, this has to go a little bit further. The same happened in Virginia with the exchange. All of a sudden, I was invited, and part of the project is to exhibit the artwork throughout the schools. So the teachers in Spanish had implemented the project for kids to learn Spanish. They were using the letters and the postcards to learn Spanish and to communicate. So now all of this is expanding. What happens? So then I said, well, the next best thing maybe is to exhibit in Dallas at the airport, first I thought. And I went to National Airport, and I met with, the airport authorities, the person in charge of it. And she liked the idea, and she said, I think it's best if you exhibit in Dallas Airport because it's an international airport. And she asked me, what would you like? And I said, I want a tunnel. And a tunnel. And then she said, okay, I give you a tunnel. So she gave me, the United Airlines Sea Concourse. And I couldn't, by this, I couldn't believe that this was happening to me. And I only had, I received a grant for $1,000 for the students. And that was my budget. And I had to come up with an idea with that budget to cover, a space of 30 feet, 10 meters long. So I did this installation with watercolor paper and little windows showing each postcard. And the airport told me that they could have it there for 3 months. And I was completely happy with that because, that was a huge deal for me to accomplish. And the airport set it up beautifully. And it ended up staying there for 3 years. And I think, 13 million people saw this installation. And part of this deal with the airport was that I couldn't have my name on it. So I was fine with it because, all I wanted to do was elevate the kids' artwork and showcase their school. And, I only had the name of the project. So this 3 years, one of these 13 million persons was Nicole. And she tagged me in an Instagram post. And immediately, when I see this message, wonderful art piece, and I just thanked her back, and I said, I was completely, first of all, surprised that an astronaut would like my work. And as soon as I realized that, I said, well, maybe this is a good thing for my students to go into space. So I asked Nicole, I sent her a little note. I said, is it possible if we send postcards to space, messages to the astronauts? And Nicole was so wonderful, and she replied to me, and we connected. And that's how our story began. I thought I was alone, but I met Nicole, and then
Maria, Maria, thanks for giving me the short version there. Hey,
sorry.
No, it's great. It's a great story. I wish I'd had an art teacher like you when I was at school. God, when you think that all began with a few cats in Croatia, that's really lovely. That's a great story. I want to, that's how life goes. You something this small becomes boom like that, and if you let it, and I think that's wonderful. We go to Paul. Can we play a little video we have of just give people watching an idea of what the postcard project looks like.
Unity.
Well, kids, we just want to say thanks for your contributions to space art and sending us those beautiful postcards to space. You inspire us with the artwork that you've done, and we hope that we continue to inspire you with the work that we're doing here on the International Space Station. So keep up the great work. We wish you all a great recovery, and take care. Stay strong!
Congratulations, that's really quite a project. Is it still on running? Is it still going?
Yes, it is. Well, with the pandemic, it slowed down a little bit, but
Yeah,
it's been a little difficult, working back to that. But there's still interest, so we're in the process. We're still in progress.
brilliant. Well, it very neatly brings me to Nicole, who will forever be remembered for being the first person to do a watercolor painting in space, which I think is amazing. And I got to ask you about this, Nicole. Tell me, how did that happen? And really, tell me, how do you do a watercolor in a zero gravity environment?
Yeah, I wish I would have activated my brain cell to videotape the whole process, but I didn't. But one of the things, this whole painting in space thing, absolutely one of the personal highlights, of flying in space for me, and because I think it gave me a way, like as an individual during the mission, to connect somehow with this beautiful planet I was experiencing from that very special vantage point, finding a way to, through something I love, painting, to share it with as many people as possible. And, like going back to Maria's story too, I think connection is a word that just keeps coming to mind for me in all of this, with the little girl at the hospital, between the kids in Croatia and Virginia and Ecuador and Uganda, and where Maria like spread that joy of connecting with each other, and all of that, the work that we're doing with the foundation. It's really amazing how through art and this inspiration of space, we're actually exploring, right? We're exploring in some way, and then we're connecting with each other in all new ways. And art, oh my gosh, such an amazing universal communicator. But I'll get back to your question. So painting in space. I know there's just so much I love about the way all of this connects to the conversations we're having. But I'm very thankful to a friend of mine for encouraging me to bring something that I would enjoy doing in space that I like doing down on Earth. I mean, as an astronaut preparing to go on my first space mission, I was just thinking about my checklist. Like, okay, I need to be able to, have everything ready to do the tasks that I have assigned to me. I need to make sure that I understand my checklist and all these kinds. I wasn't thinking beyond maybe taking a little stuffed animal for my son and some pictures of family and friends. I wasn't really thinking about myself otherwise in that place. And a friend of mine reminded me, she's like, man, you're going to be not just working there, but you're going to be living there. So if there's something. And so art was it, watercolor kit was it. And I brought that to space with me. And I think, somehow as human beings, we want to bring ourselves as humans with us no matter where we go. So, for me, that was watercolor painting. But and as you mentioned, Alastair, like floating, because everything floats when you're inside of the space station. Painting with watercolors was very different to what it is here on Earth. And I use the word different because it wasn't more difficult; it was just different. And
Okay.
so instead of dipping your brush into a cup of water, you dip your brush into a floating ball of water. And then you watch with interest in how that ball of water just floats around the end of the
Wow.
brush in a way that you would never see like down here on Earth. And then taking that ball of water down to the paints and watching the paint just suck the water over, and this colored ball of water moving on the end of the brush, and then discovering that because of the way that ball of water behaves in that environment, you can't just touch the brush to the paper because that whole ball of water just gets sucked into it at one time. It's like this big blob of colored water moves into the paper. And so to paint what I wanted to paint, I had to like drag the colored ball of water along the paper versus really painting with the brush like I would down here. And so it was this whole new, kind of technique. And of course, because everything floats, you got to keep everything organized. In the picture that I think you're going to show, you can see my paint kit stuck up on the wall. My feet are stuck under a little handle to keep me still. I've got to hold on to everything. You can see the little silver bags of water on the wall that I would squirt the ball of water out of to do this whole thing. And then on top of that, I think maybe more importantly was the kind of this process of looking through the window and picking what I wanted to paint, right? What of all this stunning, overwhelmingly beautiful imagery that was being presented to me through the window was I going to pick to paint? And that ended up being this tiny little chain of islands on the northern coast of Venezuela called Las Rocas. And I just remember I picked it because I remember looking through the window and thinking, oh my gosh, when I saw it, it was like, it looks like somebody had reached down already with a ginormous paintbrush and painted a wave on the ocean. And I thought, man, I need to paint that. And one of these days I'd love to visit that place as well. Maybe Viking can take me there.
Because you see, you're going to tell me I'm wrong, but I have the feeling that that the International Space Station would be a very serious place with scientists and astronauts working away on various experiments and piloting the spacecraft. But you seem to say there is room for creative expression up there in space.
Absolutely, and I think there is that, and I think part of it is because we want to, in some ways, escape from that kind of sterile environment that is there generally. We really, I think, find ways to put the human in human spaceflight, to bring what we love of Earth and enjoy on Earth with us to space. And that, since the very beginning of time, has been, colored pencils, people drawing. Alexei Leonov, one of the very early cosmonauts, doing very rudimentary colored drawings of orbital sunrises and sunsets, and music being played since the beginning. I mean, there's like, jam sessions going on up there now all the time. And my friend Karen quilted. There's been poetry written, the photography. If you weren't a photographer before you got there, you become one. It's incredible to see how we bring ourselves with us to these places. And then absolutely there is the very serious science and engineering and work that's going on there. But as my friend reminded me, I wouldn't just be working there, I'd be living there too.
And where is that painting now?
That painting right now is actually with me because the Smithsonian Air and Space, where it was for a little while, is going through a major renovation. And then when they get that gallery back up and running, I get to hand it back over to them again, loan it to them to display in one of their human spaceflight galleries.
It's got to be valuable. It's got to be.
I don't, it is to me. It really is. It's a very special memory of that whole conglomeration of memories and experience. And it's what I love about the way we're working with the kids. I think they have their personal memory of their individual piece of art, but then it becomes part of this bigger postcard project or spacesuit or interactive video display where they know their little piece is part of something with kids from all over the world. And that's pretty cool to see.
Well, that again, thank you for that link, because let's back down to earth a little bit and talk some more about the Space for Art Foundation. And we have a little video. It's a promo vid that was made for an event, but it gives a good idea of what the Space for Art Foundation is all about. Paul.
To fly in space 2 times. I came back with 3 really simple lessons, and that's that we live on a planet, we're all Earthlings, and the only word that matters is that thin blue line of atmosphere that blankets us all.
It's been a really great pleasure to design and make these spacesuits. We've worked with thousands of kids from around the world, and we've been able to build something together that we could never have done on our own.
We also see there on the space station one of those multicolored results from the spacesuit art project. Could one of you just tell us more about what those spacesuits represent and how they came about? Perhaps Marie.
Well, it came to represent everything that first unity and the artwork that was created through the little kids. In some hospitals, it definitely improved a moment in their lives. You know, sometimes they go through really challenging events, and for a period of time, they get to forget that, and they get to tell us a little bit about themselves through these colorful paintings. And through the schools, you know, it's the same. It broadens their horizons. It gives them a bigger perspective of where they are. You know, they are crewmates, and to see themselves, how they see themselves, that their place in the universe, it's really magical. So that's, you know, we changed for a moment their lives, and it's really nice to be part of that, and to elevate their artwork is amazing.
Then how did all these little these drawings or paintings get made into a spacesuit?
Well, that was a big process. Go, Nicole.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I love this because and everything Maria just said is what underlies the whole like rationale for why we even do this. You know, spacesuits just, you know, were the way we started working with the kids, and you know that was, you know, my experience that then led me to tripping off the, you know, the little walkway at Dulles Airport to meet Maria through the artwork she had created. You know, these kids, we work with them in one hospital in Houston, and that has expanded to our latest suit where we have artwork from at least one child in 190 countries on the planet. And it became really clear to us that the engagement we were having with these kids, like this inspiration of space exploration, their ability to create whatever they wanted to whatever the space theme was, and they could paint a dog or do blotches on the paper, it didn't matter. This inspiration of space that allows them to think beyond the experience they're having in that place at that time, this very transcendent kind of thing that gets them thinking about their future and how they fit, like Maria said, in this really wonderful universe, in this, you know, our place in space. I don't know how we could quit ever doing it, you know. So it started with one spacesuit in one hospital and has expanded to, you know, multiple spacesuits that now represent kids from all over the world. And we really do believe we're like delivering to our mission, which is to unite a planetary community of children through the awe and wonder of space exploration and the healing power of art. And I guess in the simplest terms, space-themed art therapy. But the joy that you see result from this as individual kids, and then collectively for their family or for the community that they're in, and then as a whole when they see these suits flying in space, or they see, like in the video you showed in the postcard project, they see their individual piece of art and picture of them all come together in this mosaic of unity or of hope or of courage, all these names that we do for our suits that represent them in one way or another and what they're going through. I see myself doing this for the rest of my life, and I hope that Maria is going to hang in there with me as we do that. And, you know, you asked the question about how these suits come together, how all that art comes together. We are so thankful. First of all, we have, you know, a partner with us, Ian Sion, who is an artist who really did lay out the initial designs for, you know, this concept for bringing the art together as spacesuits, you know, this life support system, and that the kids could relate to. And then another partner of ours who has been with us since the very beginning, this company ILC Dover, who is the spacesuit company, built the suits that walked on the moon, built the suit I did my spacewalk in. They have been volunteering with us since the very beginning. And each of these little patches that you see sewn together are done by hand by one of their craftspeople that builds real spacesuits. And so we've been very fortunate to have the support of amazingly talented space and art people helping us develop
And
these projects.
you managed to organize, which I thought was brilliant, you managed to organize a live stream from one of the astronauts wearing one of the suits down to the children and their families who painted them. Is that correct?
Yeah, the Unity art space suit, that suit flew to space. A couple of our suits have. That one flew to space. Astronaut Jack Fisher, and you can see it there. That's in the cupola module on the space station, this big bay window that faces towards Earth. I think Peggy Whitson is actually wearing the suit in that picture. And yeah, we were able to, the suit was in space. One of the astronauts wore it, Jack Fisher, and then the whole crew participated in a conversation. We were able to bring some kids to Mission Control in Houston, and then there were kids at all of the mission controls around the world for the International Space Station program, as well as piping it into the hospitals and places that had participated. And that was a very special moment for me, because that was one of the times where I had the chance. I think that was where we first met in person. Maria was at that event after I tripped off that walking sidewalk and was exposed to this amazing, I mean, Alastair, I hope you've seen the Dulles display, you know, the pictures of it, because these little windows of colorful art just, it like stopped me in my tracks as, oh my gosh, this was so, it was like a serendipity moment, but it was also like, man, this is just so reminiscent to me of what we're doing with the art spacesuits. And so I knew I needed to meet whoever this person was behind that installation. And that Unity mission control thing was where, I mean, she just hopped on a plane and came and met us. So that was awesome.
Hey, this is a good time. Let's show a little, we got a little spacesuit video to show. Let's show that right now.
We need everyone on this planet, not just parents who care about us, not just doctors who are always around, not just nurses who help us a lot. We believe that happy days are coming when we wake up without a port. We'll be healthy like the other children, no pain, no crying, no pokes. God help all the kids on the planet, help all the children please. God help all the kids on the planet, we need them to be cancer free. We believe miracles happen and mama will never cry. We believe one day in a planet where cancer will be gone for all times. Kids will be happy everywhere, go to school and play outside. We won't need a word for cancer, it will be gone from our lives. God help all the kids on the planet, help all the children please. God help all the kids on the planet, we need them to be cancer free. God help all the kids on the planet, help all the children please. God help all the kids on the planet, we need them to be cancer free. We need them to be cancer free. We need them to be cancer free.
Marie, you've given lots of workshops to children in hospitals and refugee camps. How would you sum up the positive benefits of the Space for Art program?
Well, the positive benefits are basically bringing unity, awareness of where you are, and changing perspective, changing your vision. The kids see, they come in a way and they leave differently. You know, they leave knowing that they're part of something bigger than they are. Because,
you know, it's notoriously difficult to measure things like happiness and well-being. These are things that are very difficult to quantify. But and I think a lot of people are possibly a little cynical about the whole art therapy thing, but I'm
Oh,
guessing you've seen.
definitely, we've seen it. I remember a little girl, she walked in really sick after a chemo treatment. And the moment she started to paint, you could see herself elevating. And little by little, she was painting, and all of a sudden she starts singing, and it went from being in a complete state of, not being able to move to come back and leave the room singing and happy with her drawing. That was an impression it made on me. And I saw the importance of, being in that room in that moment for that little girl. And another, little boy, we were doing an Earthrise project, and he was painting the earth as if it was the moon. And when I pointed out to him, in the picture of the Earthrise, and I told him, no, that's Earth, that's where we live, his whole changed face. He had a little sparkle in his eye. And he changed his drawing. He started erasing it. And then he changed it to Earth. And I know that in that moment, he realized his place in this vast universe. And I remember Nicole was there, and he was looking at her like this huge, the biggest superhero. And he was hugging her, and he was holding onto her picture. And,
Wow.
those little moments you can't measure them in paper. I mean, you see them, we witness them, and I know that they will remember those. And as I remember, when I had people in my life when I was little making a difference, and those memories are the ones that help me today. So I know that if we made a little impact on them for a moment, that impact will show up when they grow up.
Oh, that's beautifully put. That's very moving. Thank you, Marie. And can you give me some numbers on how many children you?
I think about maybe 4,000.
Yes, foundation and.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think what was our last number? We did a little report this year where we included our full like how many projects and all this stuff, and I think we were at I think we were actually, Maria, what were we, over 5,000 what we call artonauts of
Yes.
the kids who participate with us, and then around the world over 60 organizations, and that's like hospitals, refugee centers, orphanages, schools, in over 180, 190 countries with the last suit that we did. And that's across, 15 major projects that we've done, including the suits, and, not to mention some of the, the smaller things we've done along the way as well, just to like keep the engagement going as we're collecting the art. It's pretty impressive how, I mean, that's one thing I've been so inspired by myself, not just the work that we're doing with the kids, right? But to see how kind of the people that are around them that are always trying to lift them up in some way realize the value of this themselves. Like they're coming back to us like, let us know what your next project is, right? That to me is a measure of the success of these projects. Is like, when we reach out again to say, hey, we're doing another suit, or we've got this interactive thing we want to compile with the kids' artwork, and they're like raising their hand, yes, please, make sure you let me know. I think that's a pretty good indicator of the success of it. And we get, you use the word, what word did you use there? Like, there's a little hesitancy with people to believe this art therapy thing. Yeah. I mean, and I get it because, but what Maria was saying is so true. We go into these places and we are on a mission ourselves to figure out how do we quantify, have some scientific measure of the success of these with respect to, art therapy and wellness for these kids, but do it in a way that is completely non-intrusive. I don't want any child ever we don't ever want a kid to come into an art painting session and have to be wired up with something or do a blood draw before. And it absolutely cannot be thought of or feared in any way like this is part of, the treatment that they're having otherwise. It needs to be completely independent of that. But there are creative ways to measure that. And so we're trying to figure out who are the people that can help us with that. But man, I'll tell you what, if our little eyes could just record and, kind of file away all those stories like Maria is talking about, where the kids come in and they're just like, their mom might be dragging them in there, where they just want to go back to their room and sleep. And next thing you know, they're sitting up straighter. They're talking to the people around them. They're sharing that greater than, beyond their years wisdom with us in ways that we never imagined. We're being inspired in ways we never imagined. And they leave there absolutely feeling better. And I don't know what the measure is. Like you say, is it a measure of happiness? Is it a measure of that strength? Is it a measure of, oh, they didn't need to take their pain medicine as much, that next day? Whatever that is, if we can figure that out, we are all about doing that, because it doesn't just apply to these kids in the hospital. It's going to apply to people traveling further off our planet too, in spaceships. And so I don't know, there's so much to this that I think is exciting in a way that also allows us to connect this very fundamental idea of personal health and planetary health. How you take care of your spaceship really does have an impact on how well you can be, how you thrive in that place. And these kids get it.
Because absolutely, I it just brings me to, it just reminded me of something I heard you say when I saw you in Los Angeles a month ago, is that planet Earth is our spaceship, and we're not passengers on this spaceship. We're crew members. And I thought that was, especially coming from an astronaut such as yourself, was a lovely way of focusing our attention on the environment and the planet on which we live. And so all power to you, both of you.
Thank you.
I think we're nearly at the end, unless Marie wants to talk for 20 minutes. But I have one last question before we end, and that's for Nicole. Is Nicole, you are now you've retired from NASA, but I'm guessing you're always going to be defined as an astronaut, because you're always the one who has the coolest job in the room. Do you ever? I mean, I can't imagine you ever. At the moment you go out your front door, people will probably want to ask you something about what it's like on a space station. Do you ever get tired of that?
I never get tired of it. And I'd like to think once an astronaut, always an astronaut. And I always hold hope that there will be another opportunity to fly in space and experience our, planetary home from that vantage point again. But holy moly, there is so much to explore here on Earth. And it's what I love, especially about this connection with Viking, where exploration, I really think, is at the heart of what the crew, I'll extend that to the people traveling on the ships, to what they're all about when they're on these voyages, is they're exploring. And there's so much awe and wonder that surrounds us every day. And something like that, being on a voyage like that, behaving like an explorer, behaving like a crewmate, I think is what opens us up to the otherworldliness of our planet, to the very special place that it is in space for all of us, and hopefully opens us up to wanting to be those crewmates, not the passengers, and really actively taking a role in, just how we maintain this life support system for ourselves. And those kids working on these suits, man, you start talking crewmate, not passenger, and all of these things, and they're like, yeah, man, and they get it. And I hope that our hope, Maria, she says it really beautifully too, is that, just like that little boy discovering Earth by thinking about the moon and his place in this universe, they carry that forward with them. And we need our kids to be carrying that forward with them, and every day remembering that, oh my gosh, I live on a planet. That's a pretty cool thing to consider every day in your life.
Well, you're both of you wonderful ambassadors for what you do. Thank you so much. And I just a thought I've had for a long time was, you know, when they have the G7 or the G20 meetings and they have all the heads of state come together and they talk about this and that, what they should do is make them wear those spacesuits, those multicolored spacesuits, and put them up in the International Space Station, so they can look down on, because I mean, you're so not lucky because you've worked for it, but I really envy you having had that experience. It must be a very sobering moment to look back at where you came from.
Yeah, and I wish anybody who wanted to have it could have that experience. But I also, like you, I agree. And Maria and I have talked about this. Others, we've spoken about exactly what you said. Is, man, if we could just get all of our world leaders, all of them, up there floating in front of that cupola, all their little heads bouncing off each other as they're looking back at Earth as a planet. You know, instead of in some sterile conference room, I don't care where you are, you know, where you're not even immersed in the nature that's in Scotland or Paris or wherever it might be that they're holding those meetings. It's like, you've got to put yourself, and there is no better way to put yourself in the middle of it and completely acknowledge it, the reality of who and where we are in space together, than floating in front of that window and looking back at Earth. Yeah. Hallelujah.
Marie, what's coming up with the Space for Art Foundation? What's in the diary?
In the diary, we have exciting projects coming up. We're building a new suit.
Oh.
We don't have a name for it. Nicole.
We don't yet, no.
Okay.
It's okay.
Yeah, we're still coming up with a new suit. We're continuing with our project, Postcards to Space, with our partners. Nothing, you know, we're continuing with the projects.
And tell me about, how do you fund? How does it work with funding?
Funding, well, we have incredible donors, and big and small, and that's our little motor that we continue. So, Nicole, would you like to help me with that?
Well, yeah, and I'm really excited for our not yet to be named suit that's in the works. We're collecting the artwork right now, and Alastair, we might reach out to you to see, you know, who you might help us engage with around the world to get the fabric to participate in this next suit. Our focus on it is is time, our place in the universe, and you know, this sense of time that we have traveling through space. And again, the connection between personal and planetary health. Our partners at ILC Dover will be supporting us. Our partners at A-Block Interactive Experiences will help us bring it to life in some way. And we will continue to be very thankful to, like Maria says, our big and small donors who keep us going. I mean, really keep us going. I am so thankful to have also partners in purpose like Maria on this team, on this crew, that have since the beginning just volunteered to make this, you know, this awe and wonder of this artwork come to life, and bring this unity to these kids around the world.
Yeah, a big shout out to the donors. Fantastic.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
Wonderful what you're doing. And a huge thanks to both of you for coming onto the program. Really, I really enjoyed this chatting with you and laughing with you.
Happy to be here.
And, you know, there's a lot of, I mean, it's a crazy old world we live in, but there's a lot of room for optimism too. So I think
absolutely. Let's get some art spacesuits on Neptune.
Yeah, let's all wear them. You know, and have a party.
That could be good.
And ladies and gentlemen watching at home, thank you so much for joining us. And from myself, from Marie, from Nicole, see you next time. Bye.